Hello YouTube. The Yakut taiga or boreal forest is often compared to the sea or even to the ocean according to the territory it occupies and the secrets hidden in the depths of the forests. One of these mysteries has to do with giant birds. This phenomenon was investigated by the local Russian writer and former police investigator Andrei Yefremov several years ago. The last report he published actually was in 2013, but the cryptids of Yakutia have not disappeared anywhere, as you can see in my videos. And I have attached the playlist URL so you can watch it. This is one of the areas on our planet where I would love to go to and personally conduct field research, but right now I don't see the possibility. Maybe one day. Just remember, the indigenous population there is not too keen on sharing their knowledge when it comes to paranormal phenomena. As for my research in Yakutia, it has been acknowledged, and some of it published years ago. This is the land of mysterious cauldrons, these mysterious radioactive structures in the permafrost embedded there from the time immemorial, and I've been talking about it in different arenas of the world, and I've been asked a lot of questions, and you can see my research in the attached playlist. I think you will find it very interesting. But let's look now at the uncanny birds. In 2007, the Neryugrinsky district of Yakutia was invaded by unusual giant birds that suddenly attacked deer herds and exterminated fawns. The director of Municipal Unitary Enterprise, Yengra, even had to contact the district administration with a request to allocate night vision equipment for the extermination of feathered monsters, as they referred to the birds. There was some noise in the media, and the issue was resolved at the government level, but an unambiguous answer to the question to which species these birds belong was never found. Scientists say that there is supposedly such a giant bird in Yakutia. This species belongs to golden eagles, and even their number is within 200 individuals. Well, often the unknown and incomprehensible gives rise to superstitions and fears among the Yakut population. Here's a typical example, the story of an employee of the Yakut Research Institute of Tuberculosis, Stepanida Kolesova. The surname was changed by the former police officer who compiled the report. This happened in the summer of 1998 in the Ust-Yansky district of Yakutia. Stepanida's father, Pyotr Petrovich, and a relative rode horses from the village of Sailik to inspect the haymaking grounds. They were already quite far from the village, and when they passed a swampy place 100 meters away, they saw something like the silhouette of a bear. Of course, at first they decided it was a bear, because there can't be another animal of similar size in these places. The bear behaved calmly, clearly was not afraid of people, and people were not particularly worried. There seemed to be no sense of danger from this animal. It did not behave aggressively, although it was watching people. But suddenly the creature started up and spread out to the sides. Wings spread out to the sides. It was a giant bird. Now, not only people, but also the horses were really scared. When the bird straightened up, it looked to be 1.5 meters tall, and its wingspan was about 4 meters. But the bird did not take off, but folded its wings again, and it seems just looked at the human beings. Now, its appearance resembled the silhouette of an owl without a particularly prominent beak and practically without a neck. It was not possible to find out what color the plumage was, just a dark gray silhouette against a background of green grass. Upon returning home, when Pyotr Petrovich, still seized with superstitions, fear, and horror, told the household in detail about this nightmarish bird, he emphasized that this encounter was not for good, it would soon be worse. Never before, neither in this area nor in other villages, had such a bird been heard of, and there was just no conversations about anything like this. Well, in the same year Pyotr Petrovich died, his brother passed away the following summer. Here are some recollections of friends of the hunters. They told about this incomprehensible phenomenon almost the same thing, that's all they kept saying. But as a rule, there are no two completely identical witness statements, and these friends had minor discrepancies in the description of the size of the bird. And even their years of events were different, which is no wonder. None of them kept diary entries, and they could hardly even imagine that anyone would be interested in these memories. It was at the end of winter, at the beginning of the 21st century, when three comrades, Nikolai Fedosiev, Leonid Markov, and Roman Belan, hunted elks. For several days they traveled around the taiga on the UAZ all-terrain vehicle. They had already driven quite a few hundred kilometers, and by about lunchtime left for the taiga area of Biaskel, a mountainous region. In the village of the same name, they took on board a familiar guide named Ivan, and passing by another lake they saw something wrong, which in no way corresponds to some well-established human concepts. This so-called wrong was an empty bird's nest on top of a tall pine tree about 200 meters to the west of the car. An ordinary, or rather because of its size, an unusual bird's nest. Roman stopped the car. They took turns looking through binoculars. The nest was clearly empty, abandoned. Curiosity got the upper hand. The hunters got out of the car, and overcoming fatigue, sinking hip deep in snow, they embarked to the pine tree. The pine was huge, tall, and unusually thick. It is clear that it was ancient and was beginning to dry up. It rose above the forest, and at the very top there was a nest. It looked like a bird's nest, but the dimensions. They came up and began to inspect the place. The nest at the top of the tree was like a giant umbrella, so the ground under the tree was not particularly covered with snow. Cleanly gnawed animal bones stuck out here and there. They examined the place, a pile of bones under a layer of snow, and not some trifle, not just like hares or ducks, but rather large bones, deer, wild goats, moose calves, or young moose. It goes without saying, the bones under the pine tree were the result of presence of an incredibly huge bird's nest. 3 or 4 adults could easily fit in the nest itself. The nest was built not from grass twigs, but from brushwood, thick branches, dead wood. Well, in 2007, Eduard Stepanenko and Roman Belan, who is already familiar to us, were hunting, and again on the UAZ all-terrain vehicle. That's what they used to travel around. Around lunchtime, they left for the taiga area of Lutenga. This is on the border of the Khangalasky and Aldan districts of Yakutia. It was a clear, sunny winter day. The vehicle was slowly moving along a snowy country road. Suddenly, on top of the car, for a moment obscuring the sunlight, something flashed. Low over the car itself, and then over the tops of the trees, an object was flying silently. It was a giant bird. Friends were taken aback. The car was stopped. The engine was turned off. After a while, the bird disappeared from sight. Admittedly, at first it seemed to Eduard Stepanenko it was a hang glider that flew by, but in the remote taiga, and even more so in the freezing cold, a hang glider. When the object moved away from the blinding sun, the rare and small amplitude flaps of bird wings became distinguishable. Roman, at first from surprise, Also imagine a winged man, as he later said, almost like an Icarus. This is from the fact that the size of the trunk was quite consistent, and still, by the way, he's not sure what it could be, because in the gray-ash silhouette he did not distinguish a beak. In the testimony of friends, there are also differences in the description of the size of the wingspan. Roman has 4 to 5 meters, Eduard Stepanenko has about 4. But the size of the trunk in the description is stable. It was the size of an adult. So the winged creature rapidly descended and disappeared behind the treetops. There was a crackling of broken branches in the silence of the winter taiga. The sounds are perfectly audible. This predator noticed the game and, not allowing the hunted prey to escape without sorting out the way, fell on it or swooped on it. Questions arise. Firstly, how can a giant bird, after a hearty lunch, be able to take off from a tight space because of the nearby trunks, because it needs tree trunks, and also because it needs a run-up, right, to start flying? The answer is simple. It will take a step to an open place, even perhaps with prey in powerful beak. For a flying predator of this size and power, there probably won't be any enemies even on the ground. And secondly, how can such a bulky creature, when descending from an altitude, from height, not be afraid to get hurt on broken tree branches? The fact is that a large taiga bird has very strong feathers. For example, an adult grouse is often simply impossible to remove with small shot and even a buckshot. Small shells fly off the feathers as from armor. You can only remove it with a rifle bullet or a powerful shotgun slug. What can we say about such flying giants? The strength of their huge feathers is certainly comparable to bone. So, is there such a bird in nature, in the existence of which the human mind refuses to believe? Scientists claim that from 3 to 100 million species of animals and plants, from unicellular and weightless crumbs to multi-ton giants, exist on our planet. The spread is 97 million. Moreover, there are species that arise and disappear in a fairly short period of time. Such encounters with giant birds are often described among hunters, but few people have seen them up close. They fly either at very high altitudes. For example, the condor flight ceiling is 10 kilometers. Or they suddenly appear at an extremely low altitude and, grabbing prey, immediately disappear. So no one has been able to accurately describe their appearance as yet. At the level of rumors, there is an opinion that the length of the claws of these flying predators is within 10 centimeters, and this, admittedly, is a dangerous and formidable penetrating weapon like knives. On June 24, 2013, two 3-year-old girls, Ayana Vinokurova and Alina Ivanova, who came from Yakutsk to visit their grandmothers, disappeared in the village of Sinsk in Yakutia. On the same day, the entire population of the village, the operational and investigative bodies of the Republic, and volunteers were alerted to their feet. The search was conducted by divers, helicopters, unmanned aerial vehicles, but the efforts did not yield results. Initially attracted to the search, the dog led to the road where the trail simply ended. The grandfather of one of the girls said that they disappeared in a time interval of 15 minutes. The investigative authorities were inclined to 3 hypotheses. 1. The girls themselves went into the forest. 2. They died in an accident. And 3. Criminals were involved. With the help of a polygraph, all residents of the village, previously convicted persons, people with mental disorders, were interviewed, but unfortunately, these events did not bring any results. There is an opinion of individual journalists. The population of the village fears something and is hiding something. As the last hope, psychics were also involved in the search. In the investigation, they were inclined to believe that the girls were in the taiga, so the searchers literally dug the ground where the psychics pointed to, but even this did not give results. The whole of Yakutia was worried and prayed to God that the girls would still be found. Several groups were working and putting forward various hypotheses. It is known that large birds of prey, eagles, golden eagles, and the like are quite able to carry off small animals and birds, geese, ducks, chickens, and hares. What can we say about giant individuals who are able to easily raise larger game? Wild goats, moose, calves. There is a lot of information about cases of abduction by large birds of prey, of even domesticated dogs, yard dogs. The hypothesis about the abduction of children in Sinsk by a giant bird. Why not? Because the total weight of children is within 30 kilograms. It seems implausible. Nevertheless, serious government agencies have attracted and are still attracting even psychics to the search. Psychics were more inclined to believe that children were in the forest, and there was an unheard opinion that they were somewhere in a rocky area. Sinsk is surrounded by endless taiga on the banks of the Lena and Blue rivers. On Lena, there are famous impassable rocks, Sinsky and Lena pillars, and many wooded islands. Many eagles nest on rocky pillars, secretive birds, dangerous, mysterious individuals, giant birds, can nest in the taiga, on islands and on rocks. At least the huge nests described by Yakut hunters can be found on rocks and in forests from aboard a search airplane or helicopter in the area of the Sinsk and Lena pillars. Against the background of greenery, gray rocks, and even more snow, the nest from afar will look like indeterminate dark spot. But this is only one of many hypotheses, and God forbid that it would be confirmed that the cause of the abduction or disappearance of the girls had to do with the giant birds. However, at least two actual facts are known in history. In 1895, in West Virginia, an unidentified winged creature carried off a 10-year-old girl. And on July 25, 1977, 10-year-old Marlon Lowe from the state of Illinois in the United States, weighing almost 30 kilograms, was lifted by a supposedly giant condor. But he resisted desperately. He beat the bird's legs with his fists, twisted his whole body, tried to break his clothes. The bird loosened its grip and the boy fell from a small altitude. Here is the report of the second-year student of the Biology and Geography Department of the Northeastern Federal University. He belonged to the group called Nature Management, and the student's name was Macabre. The surname was changed by the police investigator. This summer, 2013, we were on practice in the village of Elanka in the Hangalaski Ulus, it's like region, area, which is not far from the village of Sinsk. I had to walk along the coast of the Blue Pillars, about 20 to 50 kilometers, We knew about the missing girls, but alas, our superiors did not allow us to participate in the search because they considered us unprepared for such an extreme search operation. I will say my opinion. The population in the village is really strange, as like in the films about tourists who enter the cursed village. Our history teacher told us one case. A group of students went on a long hike, also from Alanka. They stopped in a clearing for the night. At night, everyone was woken up by a sound similar to the flapping of huge bird wings, while a strange sound was heard, which was made by an unknown creature, similar to a woman's moan or cry. The girls in the tent panicked, and as soon as the guys came out, the creature flew away. The guys told me it was a huge bird, 2 meters tall and with a wingspan of 4 meters. How little we know about Yakutia and its beauty. It turns out that it takes 10 minutes by helicopter from Lena Pillars to see another miracle, the Blue Pillars. Blue, and they are located very close to the Blue River. I'm telling it because maybe someone someday will be able to travel there and see, but be careful. I wonder what strange creatures hide among the pillars. In the future, I'll tell you more about the paranormal Yakutia or Republic of Sakha. But before I leave, here is a very interesting report from 2018. Well, it also has to do with the birds, but you make your own conclusion. Incomprehensible crap. Birds died en masse in Yakutia before the shutdown of the sun in late July. According to the Glav-Red Info news site, the sun was not visible from 11:30 a.m. to 14 hours in the afternoon, local residents reported. In Yakutia, the sun was turned off for 3 hours, after which carcasses of dead birds were found in those areas, and today a strange atmospheric phenomenon. And it all started with the fact that the International Business Times publication recorded a strange anomaly in central Siberia. The sun was turned off over some areas for 3 hours, turning day into night. The publication claims that the US satellites managed to record this metamorphosis. At the same time, the most popular reasons for the incident were such hypotheses: UFO phenomenon, meteorite fall, or the Kremlin was testing a new secret weapon. According to satellite data, the Arctic part of Yakutia abruptly plunged into darkness after a giant black cloud hovered over it. At the same time, the area of the sudden eclipse exceeded the size of the British Islands. It was really pitch dark. It didn't come immediately, but gradually. The sun was not visible from 11:30 to 14 hours in the afternoon, local residents reported. At that time, there was a sharp decrease in temperature, which meteorologists have not yet been able to explain. According to local eyewitnesses, they saw a strange flash shortly before these events, and many local residents found it difficult to breathe. Here's how a resident of the village of Ivana Betantayski district describes what happened. It was at 11 o'clock in the morning. It was pitch dark in the house. Without electricity, nothing could be seen. Everyone carried flashlights. There was no wind. It was impossible to be on the street. It was oppressive. It is worth noting that there are no reports of eclipses or meteorite falls in this region, as well as planned weapon tests. However, judging by the photographs, the military were still at the scene of the strange events. And messages being spread on WhatsApp that a light flash and an increase in the radiation background and the activity of the military were recorded from American satellites. To what extent this is true, the military will not tell us for sure. The publication quotes residents of the villages of the Evena Bytantayski district. At the same time, after the shutdown of the sun, a lot of dust rose up. The water in the barrels turned into a mess of mud. A dusty layer formed on the surface of the lakes, one of the residents reported. Moreover, after switching to the night in broad daylight near the lake Baibalkuele, the residents of the Eginsky district found 20 carcasses of dead birds, and today photos of an incomprehensible atmospheric phenomenon vaguely resembled a tornado and are being distributed. This is how a rocket with a nuclear engine is tested. One of the site users, Vyacheslav Savachenko, commented on the photograph. There is more information. The death of the birds was recorded near Lake Baibalkuele. According to media reports, about 50 dead birds have already been found, and this may be due to recent loss of the sun. Specialists have already left for this territory to take samples of water and soil. The carcasses of birds have already been sent for laboratory studies in order to find out the causes of their death. Residents of settlements located near this lake were forbidden to use its water, including for technical purposes. Meanwhile, foreign media reported that American satellites recorded a giant black cloud over part of Siberia on July the 20th. From the satellites it was visible that the area of the Arctic region of Yakutia was suddenly plunged into darkness. Local residents continue to wonder what has obscured the sun for them, including putting forward hypotheses about nuclear weapon tests. The leadership of the Republic does not react to the complaints and bewilderment of the people in any way. The reasons for the unplanned solar eclipse over some villages of the Republic are not being clarified. Well, as reported by the news agency Regnum, on July 20, around 11 o'clock local time or 5 o'clock Moscow time, it was almost dark in some Arctic settlements of Yakutia, and the sun returned only about 14 hours. Residents of the Evena Butantai, Zhigansky, and Verkhoyansky districts of the Republic reported about this anomaly in the media. At first it was dark, as with an approaching thunderstorm front. Then it began to darken, but with a yellow tinge, as with tinting. It was unusual. We doubt about the eclipse too. Usually they tell about this phenomenon in advance, and it does not happen for such a long time. People assume. I do want to tell you something. I believe that in my lectures I presented information about the 1930s darkness that fell over Siberia, and as far as we know, there were no nuclear tests at that time. But I'll add a few things more. And about the 2018 event, years ago I mentioned it in my videos too. Very unusual. But let's get back to the description from that time. Meteorologists in turn dismissed the hypothesis that the loss of the sun could have been caused by some climatic reasons. Deputy head of the Department of Hydrometeorology and Environmental Monitoring, Yuri Degtyarenko, said that the weather stations located in these municipalities did not record any anomalies. The smoke from forest fires also could hardly have caused a strange eclipse. There was no smell of burning, very important to remember. According to a Siberian news agency, the mass death of birds occurred in the Verkhoyansky district of Yakutia, near Lake Baikalkuele, the water which is forbidden to use by local residents. An expedition has been organized to the scene of the accident. The bodies of about 50 lake girls were found by local residents on July 24th on the territory of Lake Baikalkuele. It is forbidden to use water from it, even for technological needs. Inspectors of nature protection or environmental protection went to the scene of the incident. The way would take them a whole day. The portal Yakutia 24 reported with reference to the Unified Dispatching Service of the district. The Regional Ministry of Ecology will publish the results of the inspection of the incident. Sometime later, we actually learned, according to results of the laboratory studies of the Republican Information and Analytical Center for Environmental Monitoring of the Ministry of Ecology of the Republic of Sakha, Yakutia, salt composition, nitrogen group of compounds, metal content, organic pollutants, a total of 29 water quality indicators were determined in water samples. Certain components are in the values of background concentrations. Abnormal accumulations of toxic elements have not been detected. Samples of water, soil, and vegetation, in addition to hydrochemical and geochemical, were examined for radioecological indicators. In the water sample of the lake by Balkuele, at the site of the Osokhton of the Aginsky na Sleg territorial unit of the Verkhoyansky district on the coastline, in which the dead young birds were found, an excess of the standard for the content of formaldehyde was found. According to experts, this may be due to smoke from forest fires. So previous experts said no way. These experts have to cover up, and they say forest fires. Yeah, sure. Was it a nuclear explosion? Well, a Russian writer and publicist Vladimir Garmatyuk, author of the book Discoveries and Hypotheses of the 21st Century, published in 2018 in Germany, shared his view of events with the News of Yakutia agency. Due to the bad inheritance from the USSR or legacy, it is not customary in Russia to stand on ceremony with the people, to say something to them, to tell them, to explain something. For example, about the accident at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant on April 26, 1986, the people learned about radiation from foreign radio stations. Some Russian websites already write, foreign sources indicate that NASA satellites on July 20, 2018, in a mountain range on the border of the Bulunsky and Verkhoyansky districts of Yakutia, recorded a powerful flash and a sharp increase in the radiation background. Presumably another underground nuclear explosion was made in the mountains of the Verkhoyansk mountain range. Vladimir Garmatyuk emphasized this. Recall that at one time Yakutia experienced a lot of nuclear explosions. From 1974 to 1987, 12 underground industrial nuclear explosions were carried out on the territory of the Republic. 2 explosions were unsuccessful. As a result, serious pollution of the environment by nuclear fission products occurred. It seems that the authorities of Yakutia have forgotten about the tests that the inhabitants of the Republic were subjected to when 12 underground nuclear explosions were carried out. Radiation does not pass without a trace. Therefore, one should not be surprised at the number of cancer patients in the Republic of Sakha Yakutia. But you cannot be so indifferent to such events when suddenly it's pitch dark, the air temperature drops sharply, it becomes hard to breathe, dead birds fall from the sky, and crops die in suburban areas. And the authorities are keeping quiet. What was it? There's something else. Another strange event happened on that ill-fated day, July the 20th. On that day, the day of the strange solar eclipse, an An-24 passenger plane was carrying its usual flight route from the village of Olenyok to Yakutsk. The aircraft almost crashed. The An-24 got into a dense cloud in which some large particles were moving, and so the airplane turned out to be riddled with buckshots. Potshots? What caused such damage? The publicist Vladimir Gormatyuk asked himself a question. The reasons are not specified in the official message. If you check the radiation level, the dust should be radioactive. Then most likely the background of the aircraft skin will be radioactive. It will take some more time and the situation will clear up more. But it takes time. Perhaps one of the participants or victims will suddenly speak, asked the Russian writer. Apparently no one did. What can I add? Maybe the giant birds are results of mutations from radioactive fallout. If not from the Soviet times, then from the time when the ancients tested their weapons. You will understand when you see my videos. I remember also how years ago I found an obscure newspaper report about a tremendous explosion in 1925 in Yakutia. Who would have been able to do it in the remote and largely unsubdued by the Soviet regime taiga area in the 1920s? Stay tuned for more Yakutia stories from me, and if you like my research and if you can support me, please find the links in the description to this video. Please like it, please subscribe to my channel, and please tell others. Thank you.